generative AI right now has the challenge of bringing people along, getting people to not feel threatened by the technology, but actually making them feel at home with it and making the most of it. So for us right now, I think that is really one of the key distinguishers from many other projects you might have, that some people feel intimidated. You have to get them to teach the technology, to take the responsibility for it. For instance, I don't want anyone in the organization saying AI did it. We always have to remain accountable as people.
Welcome back to the Information Week Podcast. I'm your host, Senior Editor Xiao Pierre Ruth. Today's episode, we are talking about what tech leadership can do to course correct if their AI initiatives start to miss their goals. In these adolescent or growing days for AI and enterprise, some initiatives can feel like exploring a bit of undiscovered country along the way. The value a company hopes to extract from a pilot might be in the distance or might not be attainable as originally planned. Maybe there are not great measurable impacts that are coming out of the pilot to further support the initiative going forward. So what does tech leadership do to course correct, if not completely pivot if necessary, to address an AI initiative that starts to miss the mark? For today's episode, we are joined by Vijay Kotu, the Chief Analytics Officer for ServiceNow. Vijay, good to be seeing you.
Great to be here, JP. Thanks for the invite.
We're also joined by Jonas Hansson, Chief Information Officer for Access Communications. Jonas, good to be seeing you as well.
Thank you. The same. Thank you.
Right. All right. So let's start off by kind of like that initial groundwork that you might do with any kind of AI initiatives or pilots that you might be considering exploring with your organizations. Jonas, when you start us off, how do you set milestone and check-ins differently with an AI initiative compared with other types of projects that you might have got going within your organization?
Well, to begin with, I think that one of the most important metrics right now or goals with AI is to get everyone along. It's a learning experience. So what we do to begin with is to try to avoid goal setting, because it can be, I have a colleague who calls it premature optimization. We're trying to measure something where we haven't defined the problem yet. Right now, we're trying to get people on board. We want everyone to learn. So the first step is actually just to make sure people are curious and get AI literate. So that's really the first part of anything. Then when you get into a project, the more mature it becomes, the further along we can add KPIs or metrics. But to begin with, it's all about creating a learning environment where people feel safe to fail. And then the only outcome that we actually go for is to understand more, to learn more.
Vijay, how about on your end?
It's great perspective, Jonas. It's on the similar lines. I look at AI milestone very similar like hiring an employee, onboarding a customer or a partner, or even acquiring a company. So there's so much work involved in getting people on board, getting a customer. But the real work starts in day one. And what are the milestones that we're going to have? Very similar. We don't expect a great, stellar performance on day one. There's so much context setting. There's so much onboarding, make sure that people are comfortable with this new tech. What is the change management? And what would be the day 30, day 90 milestone? Every leader is supposed to present day 100 strategy, right? So we give some time for context, learning, etc. And then the performance starts. And in the performance side, very similar, what would be technical metrics, model metrics, adoption metrics, and value metrics. Those would be the milestones or the metrics that we are going to measure for AI, slightly different than any other IT projects that we have been actually building for so long.
It's nice. We would, one of the things that we try to get everyone to get right is to define the problem properly. There's a great quote by an old American head of development, Charles Kettering. He said, "A problem well stated is a problem half solved," and that's quite important when it comes to AI as well, because people get, intoxicated with the technology and what it can do so much many times that they kind of forget what problem they're solving. So that's really what we try to aim to get the organization to do first. Understand and explore what the problem you're trying to solve actually is.
Speaking of problems that you're trying to solve, how likely are you to take action early on if an AI initiative seems to be showing some early stages of going astray? Do you try to let it play out a bit, or do you try to decide to actually pounce more directly, more energetically as soon as something seems to be amiss?
It really depends on the use case, the situation, the severity of the use case, and also what kind of signals are we seeing as well. So in AI adoption, there are a bunch of technical signals, right? If the AI use case is about predict something, then we have F1 score, accuracy, etc. If it is about Gen AI, is it coherent? Is it relevant? If it is agentic AI, did it really complete the task? So there are some technical measures. And if that goes wrong, then we know how to interpret those signals there. It is like going to a doctor's office, a bunch of tests, and we don't know what these numbers are, but if we have a range and what this really means, and that is essentially the literacy that Jonas was talking about. So we should be literate in these measures. One is on the technical side. Another one is on our users adopting it. Is it an adoption problem in terms of technically everything is working well, but it's really not really adopted? Why is that? What is the change management that is required? And the last one is ultimately what matters is that business objective. Is that customer satisfaction score or the deflection rate is going up, etc. Right? So what would be that business problem? So as we measure AI against technical and adoption and the business measure, then we know what's wrong. So we know how to react and what to react, etc. So what our first step would be understanding the context and those measures.
And for us, I think that's a great perspective, Vijay. We have a slightly different approach. We try to measure less to begin with, and we take a risk-based approach. So if we see that we're still learning, fantastic. Then we can let it run, as long as we don't violate any of the primary risks. And the primary risk for us could be like exposing certain information, or if we would break any code of conduct or value-based approach. Axis is a very value-based company. And so for us, that is really the crucial part. But as long as we keep learning or exploring the problem, we are ready to let it run for quite a long time, even if we don't really see the return on investment day one.
So talking a bit about return on investment, let's talk about deliverables. A little bit different from talking about milestones, but when you are working on AI initiatives, are the idea of the deliverables and the outcomes that you are looking for from these initiatives, are those different compared with other types of pilots? Do you kind of like frame it differently for what that kind of like expectation of what an AI initiative might offer us? Jonas, why don't you lead us off with your thoughts?
Well, yes and no. I mean, generative AI right now has the challenge of bringing people along, getting people to not feel threatened by the technology, but actually making them feel at home with it and making the most of it. So for us right now, I think that is really one of the key distinguishers from many other projects you might have, that some people feel intimidated. You have to get them to teach the technology, to take the responsibility for it. For instance, I don't want anyone in the organization saying AI did it. We always have to remain accountable as people. And that means you have to build the technology into people, or people into technology at the same time. So this is really two kinds of intelligences getting to know each other in a early dating scenario almost. So this kind of distinguishes AI projects from many other projects where you can ask it to be deterministic. It's going to behave the same every time. Right now, generative AI is probabilistic. It's going to be, to some extent, slightly surprising. what you get out of it. And so you have to build people into it a slightly different way, I would say.
Great point, Jonas. And AI is a means to the end, not end itself. And the end objective is what is the value any problem is adding to the company, any solution to the problem adding to the company. And AI is how we get there, right? So every company has a business model. Yes, we need to grow in terms of top line, bottom line, and customer satisfaction, etc. So there are business objectives. AI is how we reach some of those business objectives. And for that, we are deploying multiple use cases across the company. And the outcome of those use cases is most likely about optimizing the process, etc. But we've been doing that for a while, whether with AI, without AI, or with other process optimization techniques, we've been doing that, right? It is a new way for us to get to that outcome there. Having said that, the outcome remains the same, but the deliverables is actually different. The deliverables is not just a product and a box that we are delivering. This is actively learning, actively changing. Jonas talked about actually letting it learn for a while and then optimize it. But optimizing it is essentially what the deliverable is going to be. What would be that optimization path? Is it technical? Is it adoption? Is it business, etc.? And that is something that we would need to learn because it's a new way of doing it. So deliverable, yes, it is changing. Outcome, no, it is not changing.
For us, we might have a slightly ServiceNow being a software company, Axis is a hardware company. So we have AI built into the chipset, which means we, as a product company, have been delivering AI for 10 years that has to be very accurate and very precise, but also have very limited computation capabilities. So what's being added right now with generative AI is the change of production processes, or the internal process optimization that Vijay talks about. So from a commercial perspective, we've seen AI impact the surveillance industry where we are for quite some time. But right now it's coming to the workforce fast and changing development and everything. But where I think a technical company will see the first benefits is when you get the engineers to start adopting it for software development. We're seeing that being quite mature use cases. But what's happening right now is that we're bringing everyone else along as well, from finance, from human resource, from supporting functions that weren't necessarily used to building technology on their own. And we can see them starting creating their own software solutions without any technical skills. And this is really, really interesting from a governance perspective in a company, because this means we have to teach non-tech organizations maintenance of code, how to take responsibility for the information you build into it, and so on. So it's actually making every organization into a tech organization. That's really the big change in what's going on right now.
That's right, Jonas. And that's why it's even more important for us to have controls in place. Given that we are doing a distributed development across the organization, people are developing their own solutions, which is great. And this is where the control comes in, risk management comes in as well, to make sure that all these AI use cases are kind of cohesive in getting into that company objective.
Sure. All right. Now, talking about getting to that company objective, how much of a challenge is it to alter an AI initiative if things seem to be, again, going astray and you're not, really going to hit that objective that you're looking for? And who would you need to kind of bring back in to deliver those changes, particularly if, let's say, the initiative started with some third-party resources, some third-party hands that you initially might have brought in to, be part of the mix in some way? How difficult is it to kind of change course when it comes down to it?
Altering one use case is easy, right? But altering many AI use cases across the company, it is just a scale challenge. And every organization is facing that particular scale challenge because there are hundreds of use cases, maybe even thousands of agents that are deployed across the company. And this is why what we did is the model control plane, which is essentially we will gather all the data. That's what we have done it, will all the get all the data about this deployed AI, how much different use cases are deployed, how many agents are deployed, and are they risk managed? What is the level of security access they have? And what is, in terms of monitoring and getting the telemetry, is this particular AI use case is working or not working? And who is adopting it? Why they're not adopting it? What is the depth of adoption? Are they just using it and then going away and reworking the work that we don't actually see it? And the last one would be all these different use cases. Is it really adding value? Right. So there are multiple parameters for us to look at in many of these use cases, and many use cases are getting deployed in across the business processes. And many times these business processes are dependent on each other. Right. So it becomes a scale problem to manage this overall. We relied a lot on model control plane, bringing all this data together so that we have visibility in how to manage it and which use cases to pause, which use cases to promote, which use cases that we need to change, and what business objective that actually changes in the final output, right? So that's how we have tried to manage this problem. In overall question, most likely where the problems that I have seen is not really on model performance. It's usually about the data that we are using for this particular model, and the adoption are the key two areas where we have seen a lot more things that we will have to do in terms of those changes.
Can I ask you a question, Vijay? Do you have a centralized control of what initiatives and use cases you decide to start implementing?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the model control plane, the control tower that brings all this together. And that's how we have managed it. We started really small in managing in databases, in SharePoints, etc. But we graduated it because just the sheer scale of what this is going on right now in terms of number of use cases and multiple things that we need to measure, we had to develop that on model control plane.
I think that's super interesting because it's so different from how we do things. We started building capabilities as a platform for Axis in February 2023, a couple of months after ChatGPT was launched. And now we have an internal AI foundation free for all to use with all the OpenAI models, everything from Gemini and Google and everything from Anthropic. And it's free for all to use, build agents on in the entire company. So we have this explosion of tech being used across the company with, as I'm sure ServiceNow has as well, thousands of engineers as tech companies, as we do too, thousands of engineers who do this, but also every other part of the company. And JP, this means that your question for us means that we only pull the plug if we stop learning or if it becomes a real risk for the company. Otherwise, we try to tweak and change and navigate as we run. It's like it's like running with a compass and a map when you try to navigate as you run. So we don't try to believe that we are really, really good at setting future goals. All our strategy is instead based on breaking as late as possible, keeping all options open. So what we do now is basically building capabilities now that will let us choose direction at a later date instead of deciding already now what not to do. Because all we know is that our ability to predict the future is very limited. But our ability to build capabilities now that are relevant for any future that might come, this is our key metric and key goal right now. So this means we have this scattered approach where we allow a lot of freedom and we try to narrow it down as late as we can. So but to answer your question, JP, what do we do about tweaking things, changing projects? They are always changing. If they're not changing, we are not doing the right thing. So every day is a gradual adaptation.
That's great, Jonas. It's kind of risk management as well as a portfolio. There are some use cases, high-risk use cases that we need to have more controls in place. There are some things that we can experiment and learn even faster in a limited setting, etc. So it becomes a kind of a portfolio of different use cases where we're applying and what business objectives they're solving for.
Yeah. But I mean, for us, the best outcome of a failed pilot is a better question to ask the next time. So we always try to figure out what can we learn from what we did wrong. So I mean, a failure is something that I absorb, and then we let the organization take all the credit for the success. But to your question, JP, we try to employ people. We don't try to bring consultants along. This is thinking that is supposed to be built into the company DNA. So we want this skill to be a part of the day-to-day operations. It's not something we rent someone else's skill to do, because AI is inherently value-driven. And if we want our values to infuse into the AI, we have to teach it different ways. Otherwise, we simply adopt someone else's value system.
All right. Well, speaking of learning from potential failures and moving forward, for those of you who are listening along, I've raised the Ninja Turtles game screen, which means it is now time for Questionable Ideas, our tabletop exercise where our panelists will serve as interim executives with the fictional company known as Questionable Ideas. These scenarios are not shared in advance with our guests, and they may be a little bit off the rails, but they do reflect on today's topic. My guests are not responsible for the presence of goblins, kobolds, or gremlins in these scenarios because, as always, that is entirely my fault. So again, Vijay, Jonas, the ground rules again are that you are interim executives with the same rights, powers, and privileges that you would expect to have in your roles, also including calling in additional resources as needed to deal with the scenarios ahead. Are you ready?
Sure.
I
call Superman.
Yeah, sometimes you might need to. Scenario 1, binary results. The CEO of Questionable Ideas wants a way to predict their B2B customers' behavior to better target them. The Goblins put forth an AI pilot, the Kringle Beacon. It's based on an open source algorithm developed by elves in the north. The Kringle Beacon seems to monitor behavior, but so far misses the mark. It keeps identifying customers as either naughty or nice, but offers no other actionable details. It is unclear if the data or the algorithm is the issue. Do you keep the Kringle Beacon in play as is, modify it, or start over from scratch?
Vijay, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm like jumping in. I always believe like if there is a solution out there, let's understand the problem really well. In this case, it feels like a churn prediction problem. This is something that we all have done this for a long time. And I would say if it is just a binary, it is adjustment that is needed. I'm not sure whether we need to start over. There looks like data sets already there. I would double click on that open source algo, which usually it might be okay, but just make sure that risk management, security, etc. But more importantly for this particular problem, I would say is adjustment that is needed because the model output is never binary, right? So there's something there, someone masked it to 0 or 1, etc. So that provides enough information because it's always going to be a range on this one. Now, usually in this kind of problem is where do you draw the line in terms of, let's say 0 to 1, 0 to 100, let's say where the churn prediction is going to be 79. Is it good enough? Where do you draw the line? And that kind of determines whether there's false positives, false negatives, true positives, and etc. So, and that becomes a kind of a very good mathematical optimization exercise there. I would say adjustments needed here. And let's keep the best that teams have developed so far and see what needs to change to reach to the ultimate objective for the company.
And being an information guy, I mean, I was a part of building this company, so I know the information source is solid. So I know that we're going to keep the information and we're going to work on the software side to give it better predictions. But as a B2B company, it's not only about churn. It's always about relationships as well. I mean, identifying good people, that's a good, solid beginning. So I would use it and actually try to tweak it from the results we have.
And to extend that further, it's now you know if there is some kind of predictions, relationship, etc. Now what? What are the things that we are going to do as a company to improve that relationship? if this is going to be a customer who's not that much engaged yet, not seeing the value, etc. So what does the company needs to take actions they need to take to improve that value? Because ultimately that's the objective, is for us to make sure that we are serving our customers and meet them where they are and build up to a more optimal path.
But if we have a look at I agree with you, Vijay. One of the rationales of going for the tech and trying to trust the data, or at least making more of the data, is that information is a slow changing dimension. It's really, really hard and really, really expensive to change. Whereas AI models, they come out, one new every month. So asking the team to try to do something with the tech on top of the information that exists is always a good choice, no matter what data you have.
Gotcha. All right. Well done with that. All right. On to the second scenario, toil and trouble. The chief operations officer wants an AI pilot to better forecast external industry trends and potential risks in the market. The Kobolds developed a pilot they call the Cauldron, which is an ecosystem where 3 AI agents, the Weird Sisters, generate insights from a vat of data. The Kobolds have not explained the sourcing on the data. The documentation seems to be written in an ancient unknown language, and no one else seems to know how the Weird Sisters function. The forecasts from the Cauldron tend to be cryptic and allegorical, forcing operations to decipher the results sometimes after they might have been useful. Do you allow the Weird Sisters in their Cauldron to continue as is, introduce changes, or start over?
Should I begin?
Gotcha.
Yeah. It's an interesting planet to live on, where we have these AI problems. I would definitely not let them simply go on if I don't know the source of the data, if I don't know the quality of the data, if I don't know what right we have to use the data, and if I don't know if it will lead us astray. So I would begin by finding out what is it we're looking at and working with. I need to find out the source and its reliability and its credibility. As a journalist myself, I have a tendency to want to get to the truth, and then you have to define what that is. I've always told my daughters and my colleagues that you have to learn not to know, but to understand. And I think that is really what the AI era, surviving the AI era, is about. I mean, knowledge is commodity, but understanding how things work together, this is really what makes you be able to navigate. And this is the solution to this scenario as well. What you're describing means we don't understand anything, and that's not a good place to be.
Great point, Jonas. So there are inputs, processing, and there's output. We care about output, yes. And we have improved the processing a lot with the introduction of AI. We used to call it as data science, machine learning before, etc. We have improved a lot. We have so much power in the processing. And we will all have equal power in processing access to this information, to these models. But what matters the most is the data sources. That differentiates everything. And we absolutely need to know, I agree with Jonas, to know where the sources are, but also it's useful for us to understand if the output is actually relying on the source or the system is hallucinating, and what would be the relevance, groundedness of this data. So it helps us to measure that. For that, we would need to have access to that data source. Absolutely, yes. We need to know where they are. Do we have rights for it? And if something changes, it's always the quality of the data that usually is what the key contributor to this one as well. But also, we will get new sources of this data as well for us to improve the output. And we need to understand what are the other sources of diverse set of data that we need to bring in for us to improve the model there. So absolutely, we need to know where we are, catalog it, and also see what other sources can actually accomplish the results. The black box model is not going to help in most business cases there for us to achieve the output, but also to optimize the output as well.
What we need to remember is that with every day we start deciding on data we don't trust or know the source of origin or reliability of, we lose time in the future and we have a tangent of diversion. So if we don't spend time fixing the problem early, we end up in a very, very difficult place quickly down the line. So making sure to make the most of the future means fixing the data problem day one.
Gotcha. Well, we both have definitely helped the company avoid the fate of Macbeth by not just taking the weird sisters in their cauldron at face value. Well done. All right. Last scenario. Drift racer. The lawyers knock on your door in a panic. The feds may already be on their way, and the lawyers think it's time to consider fleeing the country. Leadership still wanted an AI pilot to help forecast market conditions, and the Gremlins developed an off-the-books AI agent they called the Drift King. This AI agent is blazingly fast, and its insights seem to have the opposite problem of other AI pilots that suffer from too much data drift because they're slow to capture real-world impacts. Drift King is even forecasting activity outside of its scope, and that has several intelligence agencies concerned. The Gremlins admit Drift King hacks into unauthorized spaces, including the dark web, for its insights. But it delivers. Do you let Drift King persist, modify it, or shut it down?
Shut it down. Shut it down. Shut it.
I think it's very obvious. Absolutely. Shut it down.
Ethically, crystal clear. I mean, we're not touching that. Nowhere near. You have to have a company with employees that are proud of what they do. You have to have people that can stand tall and feel I'm not violating anyone else to succeed. So we don't do that. Shut it down.
AI is just one more kind of asset the company owns, and which also means it needs to take responsibility for as well. So the accountability lies with that. And internally, absolutely, there is a specified scope of any AI initiative that we have, but also there's specified data sets that are needed to essentially to provide for that particular processing. So it is a very defined problem on this one. Absolutely, in this particular use case, we need to shut it down.
But I think it's also about pride. I mean, legitimacy and getting people in a company to want to buy and use new technology. And if it's shady and it's gonna ethically violate all you stand for. I mean, again, as I tried to say a while back, I don't allow anyone to say AI did this. We are accountable. We are responsible. So this is not AI's fault. This is my fault. And then I have to live with that. So for me, in a few years, I mean, the risk isn't that AI replaces people. It's that we leave people behind. And I think this is one of the things we need to do. We need to have AI that's ethically and value-based, reliable, and in line with what people you have in the organization. But if you want to build a crook empire, JP, then fine, go for it. But not the company I work for.
So this also brings in a really good point. When you talk about this particular use case, JP, it's unanimous, right? We need to shut it down. But how many times do we know about all the use cases a company develops internally? And that is one of the risks for us to have understanding of what these use cases are, because there would be hundreds, in fact, thousands of use cases across large companies. We need to understand what these use cases are. What data sets are they accessing? What is the output? Is it breaching or drifting in terms of the output, etc.? And that is why it's even more important for us to get this understanding of all those AI systems in one place.
But for us, I think the challenge, I mean, in my Goblin world, is that we have quite good control of our data. We have quite good control of who can access it. So I'm not afraid of that drift. I'm actually more afraid of us not learning fast enough. So we're trying to let people loose a bit right now to begin with, to make sure that we get the momentum in the company, to not be left behind. So right now, this is one of the biggest ambitions: increase speed with everything we do, increasing speed with learning as well. And this is company-wide across the the globe for us.
Well, you've done great keeping the company out of criminality and the need for people to change their identities or go into witness protection. So listen, Jonas, Vijay, thank you so much for enduring with questionable ideas and for your insights throughout the podcast. You both have been fantastic. Appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you for having us. Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, JP. Great to meet you, Jonas. Thanks for having us.